This is the meeting of the Executive Cabinet Member for Climate Change and Environment taking place on Monday, the 9th of February 2026. I'm Councillor Richard Sylvester, the Executive Cabinet Member, and I would like to welcome councillors and officers of Bolton Council to this meeting and to members of the public if you're watching the recorded version on the Bolton Council YouTube channel. Item 1 on the agenda is the monitoring of Executive Cabinet Member decisions, and this report was sent out by email prior to the meeting. So if we have a look at the monitoring report, there are a few items which have been completed already. On the 22nd of September 2025, the cleansing of unadopted roads. That item is now complete and operational. So is the town centre's cleaning and grounds maintenance resource, also the decision I took on the 22nd of September 2025. And also the emptying of skips service. The implementation of that decision is now complete. That decision was taken on the 7th of October 2025. So those three can be removed from the next monitoring report. Any questions from any members on the call regarding the monitoring report? I'll go over to Councillor Hewitt.
Thank you, Executive Cabinet Member. I just wondered if there was any update for the monitoring report around heat source. It's there, but there's nothing in the actions and progress. So I was just wondering if there was any update.
That's the heat network. There's two decisions I made. One on the 5th of December 2023 and one on the 3rd of March 2025. And the director will give an update. We'll go over to Director John Dyson.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Sylvester. We will update the monitoring report, I suspect, prior to your next Executive Cabinet Member meeting. We have engaged with Triple Point, who are the funding provider in relation to the capital funding allocation, the commercialisation fund, which we received to support the heat network project. As certainly you will be aware, Councillor Sylvester and Councillor Hewitt, as a member of the working group that we pulled together to appraise the initial proposals to take heat network project to market. The project didn't secure any compliant bids. So we are now in the process of closing down the project. There is a debrief meeting still to be held, and as I say, dialogue in play with Triple Point, the funding provider, in relation to next steps. So that remains a live conversation at this point in time. So if I can commit, hopefully, to updating the report at the next scheduled Executive Cabinet Member meeting, Councillor Sylvester, and we'll endeavour to obviously share that with members in terms of progress. But as I say, that's the current position, Councillor Hewitt.
May I just ask a follow-up?
Yes, you can.
Yeah, so is there any sort of, at that time when you bring forward further information, will you be able to sort of like update on how much was spent in terms of the attempt to capitalise and commercialise the venture? And I just suppose really more, obviously, since there's an inability to bring forward a commercialised project, is that effectively now dead and buried? We're not going to try again with that, are we? I presume.
No. So in terms of the first question, can we set out the cost incurred during commercialisation? The answer to that question is yes. We can finalise the quantum spent on commercialisation. It does fall within the allocated £1 million allocation, but we will confirm the balance on that, Councillor Hewitt. And certainly at this point in time, the conversations that we are having are very much centred upon closing down the project. Obviously, if through that discussion the opportunity to redirect funding into a decarbonisation type project was to emerge, then clearly we would want to explore that. But certainly, as far as the heat network project is concerned, we are very much in the process of closing down that project.
Okay, if there's no further questions on that, we'll go to item 2, which is the improvements to Overdale Crematorium. And our head of service, John Gregory, will take us through this report. Over to you, John.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, this report in brief seeks permission to carry out a series of improvements at Overdale Crematorium. I'll go into some detail now about what we're looking at doing. So the crematorium itself was originally opened in 1954. It was built as a purpose-built crematorium, which might sound a bit of useless information, but actually in a lot of boroughs, crematoria are created from chapels within the grounds and other buildings that weren't originally designed to be crematoria. Overdale as a purpose-built building means that it has a number of benefits from the way that the building is designed. There are 2 chapels at the crematoria, the East and the West Chapel, and it's a very busy facility. We operate up to 14 cremation services a day, and on average, over the last few years, we've been carrying out between 2,000 and 2,200 cremation services per year. And some of those services draw a significant number of mourners as well. So we do get a very high footfall at the building. Has suffered from a lack of investment over the last 15 years. The building and some of the key equipment in there is starting to show its age. I'm going to start with the cremators. So we're currently operating 4 Newton cremators. That company, as a starting point, doesn't exist anymore and hasn't existed for some time. They were originally installed somewhere in the region of about 30 years ago. Some are a little bit newer than that, some are a little bit older than that. They're becoming increasingly difficult and expensive to operate and maintain. We can't get spare parts. There's very few people in the country who are able to service them, and I think it's a credit to the staff that operate those cremators that they've been able to keep them running for this amount of time, but they are definitely at the end of their operational life. Another issue with the cremators is they are not fully abated. They are only 50% abated. So explain that. Abatement is the process of taking the poisonous gases out of the cremation process before the gases are allowed to go up the chimney and out into the atmosphere. So at the moment, only 2 of the 4 cremators are fully abated. The other 2 are not abated at all. Now, it is perfectly legal to operate at a 50% abatement level at the moment, but at the end of this year, at the beginning of 2027, legislation changes means that any cremation equipment has to be 100% abated. So if we carry on with these into next year, they will no longer be legal, and we'll only have 2 cremators that we'll be able to use, which isn't sufficient for the needs of the service. They also have issues due to their age, and they're becoming very expensive to service. One of the things that we have to do with cremators, each cremator has to be relined every 4 years at the moment. Relining is a significant piece of building work that takes a couple of weeks. It costs between £25,000 and £30,000 a time to reline a single cremator. And the other thing is that they are quite inefficient as well. So there are significant savings to be made in terms of gas use. You can imagine how much gas we use at a crematoria. Gas bill last year was about £120,000. That did go up significantly at the start of the Ukraine war, and we had 1 year where we were paying about £300,000 for gas. So anything that we can reduce in terms of gas usage is going to be an improvement on our budget. In addition to the cremators, we've got problems with the roof. The roof itself, it's got flat sections, it's got pitch sections. We've got problems with the guttering. We've got problems with the roof leaking in a number of places. They are not leaking in any of the public areas, but in a lot of the building areas around the cremator room, around the offices and other areas that are used by the staff, we're starting to get significant leakages. If we leave it any longer, that'll start to show itself within the public areas of the crematoria as well, which is not what we want for families that are attending funerals. There's a few other sort of essential pieces of work that are required. We will need to widen the doors. The cremators that we're looking at fitting are bariatric cremators, which means they will accept larger coffin sizes. At the moment, we are limited on coffin size. And that we talk about coffin size rather than the deceased person, because I think it's a more appropriate way of doing it. But the coffin size is usually a reflection of the weight of the individual that will be cremating, and at the moment we're significantly limited on that. And the risk there, a couple of issues with that. The first is that we are almost forcing some families to take their cremations elsewhere, and there are a number of private and other crematoria nearby that people will go to if they have a larger coffin that needs cremating. What we tend to find is people will go there, they'll like the facilities, and then we might have lost a generation rather than just one funeral. And we would prefer Bolton residents to be able to come and have the service that they want through Overdale. The other issue that we need to address with that is if we're putting larger cremators in, we also need the doors widening from the chapels into the cremator room to accept those larger coffins. So that's being factored into this work. And there's some other work that we need to do in the public areas. It needs a tidy up, it needs a redecoration, we need some carpeting, some internal windows, some of the aluminium external windows. And the other main piece of work is the canopies at the front of both chapels. So the West Chapel and the East Chapel have a canopy outside. That's where mourners at the funeral tend to wait until the cortege arrives, and then they would follow the coffin in to the chapel. And those, one of those canopies was inadvertently demolished when somebody drove a van into it last year, and we're waiting to replace that. The other one is in a poor state and is ready for replacement as well, so we've factored that into the work. So in terms of the work that's required, the first most essential piece of work is to replace the cremators with new modern cremators, which are 100% abated. That'll keep us in line with the legislation. The plan is to replace the 4 existing cremators with 3 fully abated bariatric cremators, which will accept larger coffins. 3 will give us sufficient capacity to deal with the number of cremations that are coming through. Number of improvements with those. We're assured by manufacturers that we will get a 50% reduction in the use of gas, which with a gas bill, even at £120,000, is significant, but it's also more efficient. We've got less need for essential maintenance. They come with a 10-year sort of service plan and a 10 years before they need relining again. So all of that stuff that we're doing on a regular basis at the moment will drop off, and it'll be much easier to get those cremators serviced and working if we ever have any issues. As well as the cremators, we need the roof sorting out with the roof fixing. We need the other bits of decorating done, and we need the building bringing up to a reasonable, usable standard that will allow us to continue providing service to members of the public and residents of Bolton. So the work itself will be led by Corporate Property Services. We have engaged some architects already. Bailey Garner are the company of architects that we've engaged. They put some design work together which covers all of those essential elements that I've just talked about. The total cost comes to 3.164 million. So we have a capital sum that's been identified of 3 million, which has been made available to cover most of the costs of the work. And we've also identified an additional 164,000 from existing revenue funds, which will add on and just give us the extra little bits and pieces that we need in terms of the work. So the ask really, Councillor, as Cabinet member, you recommended to grant approval to option 2. Option 2 is to carry out the essential work, spend the 3 million of capital funds plus the additional 164,000 to keep the service running and providing a decent service for members of the public and for residents. I think I would add as well that being built into the plans are one of the issues I was concerned about was that we would have to stop providing the service for a period of time while this work continues. But we've already had conversations with suppliers and with the architects, and we've been assured that we will still be able to continue providing an essential funeral service while the work goes on. We may need to shut one chapel and then the other chapel while that work's being carried out. It might be a slightly reduced number of cremations. We might have to spread those cremations out a little bit more during the week, because people tend to prefer Thursdays and Fridays. So we might just be asking for a bit of cooperation from funeral directors, but we should still be able to carry on providing a service throughout all these works. So council, the recommendation is, as I say, we grant approval to option 2. Option 1 is to do nothing, which would leave us in a really poor position with Overdale, and it would start to significantly affect the service. So to make that, like I say, the options are, the recommendation is that you take the appropriate route to investment. You authorise the director of place to award contracts following the required procurement process. You authorise the borough solicitor to carry out all necessary legal formalities and the borough treasurer to carry out all necessary financial formalities as set out in the report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, John. And I'll open this up to questions from any members on the call. Yes, Councillor Hewitt.
Thank you, Executive Member. No, I just wanted to just clarify: is the restoration, because I think I've heard feedback that's looking a little tired in like the chapel and that sort of thing, and I think it's welcome that there's going to be sort of like a redecoration and restoration. I just wondered if that was coming out of the original 3 million capex, or whether that's from the 164k revenue ongoing. I just wondered how it broke down from. I think it's mentioned at 2.15. I think.
I mean, it's the whole amount is 3.164 million. So the whole works are coming out of that. What we've done is explain in the report where that amount has come from. The bulk of it is that capital sum that's been identified with that additional 164,000. If we were to just stick at the 3 million, it would have given us cremators and a roof and nothing else. But I think really, in all honesty, funeral directors especially, but certainly residents and people who use the crem would expect to see some improvements in the chapels as well. So we've got enough there to do some redecoration, some recarpeting. We need curtains, new curtains around the catafalque, things like that. So the curtains that draw across the coffin at the end of the service, that all needs sort of replacing. So that's all been it. We've been able to factor all that in as well with the costs that we've outlined in this report.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, sure. Any questions from any other members on the call? If not, I think it's a no-brainer. Obviously, it's option 2, because option 1, the crematorium goes into a further state of disrepair. We are then not meeting our statutory responsibilities, and the service eventually comes to a complete halt. So obviously, in the public interest, we want a good service from the council. We want the public to have, when I say a pleasant experience, an experience which they find satisfactory, etc. So it will obviously be option 2, which I now agree to, and I do agree to approval of option 2. And I authorise the Director of Place to negotiate and award contracts following the procurement process. And I authorise the Borough Solicitor to carry out all the necessary legal formalities, and authorise the Borough Treasurer to carry out all the necessary financial formalities. So all of that is granted and authorised and approved. So thank you, John, for your work on this. I know you've spent a lot of time on this. It's really appreciated. And we can now look forward to a much improved crematorium in due course. So can I thank everybody for the time on the call this evening, to officers and members. And I look forward to seeing everybody at the next Executive Cabinet Member meeting. Bye for now.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.